Hi guys, and welcome back. We're filming part 2 of the M2 videos. If you've not watched part 1, stop what you're doing, go and watch part 1 and then come back and then watch part 2. Part 2 is going to be of the ECU tuning for the M2. We offer 3 levels of tuning for the M2s. We offer a stage 1, a 1 plus and a stage 2. PE stage 1 is for cars which consist of completely standard hardware, so no alterations at all. So we tune the car for all the standard hardware which is on the car. And then we got a stage 1 plus, which this car is. Stage 1 plus is for cars which have an upgraded downpipe and an upgraded intake system, whether it's a full intake system or just a drop-in panel filter. And then we've got a PE stage 2, which is for cars which has everything as a stage 1 plus, so the upgraded intake, upgraded downpipe, as well as the intercooler. All this information is available on our website underneath the packages section. So if you're interested, go and have a look. There's a lot of information there with dyno graphs and expected figures for each stage as well. But the car's already strapped down on the dyno. We're going to take you through on how we set up the car on the dyno. So we're correlating with the dyno. And then also we're going to show you what we look for in terms of the data logs. So we'll data log the car standard. The car's already had a health check and a full diagnostics. But we'll data log the car standard. We'll show you what things we data log and what we're looking for in terms of the figures. And then we'll tune the car, flash a base file on there, tune the base file. So we tweak it specifically for this car and the hardware and the fuel quality which is in there. And then we'll run you through the process of everything. But for now, let's make some noise. First things first, we're going to put this car into a roll and roll mode. This just disables the ABS sensors, so we're able to dyno it, pretty similar to what we did on the GTS dyno video. All the latest F-Series vehicles have a dyno mode. So ignition on, wait for everything to come off, so we're on this display. And what we do, we'll press and hold this button right here. It'll reset the tripometer at first, keep it held down, and then we go into this menu. So take your finger off and then keep pressing, and we've got start roller. So we'll press and hold again, and then go start roller mode. So select, press and hold the DSC off, and then it's off, and then it's a case of pressing that, starting up the car, and then we're into roll and roll mode. So now that the car is in its roll and roll mode, it's just a case of setting up the car to the dyno. Pretty straightforward to do. We're going to dyno this car in 5th gear, so DCT gearbox on this. So it's just a case of getting engine speed in 5th gear at 3000 RPM to correlate with 3000 RPM on the dyno. So just drive off, get up into 5th gear. Our dyno is a braked dyno and an inertia dyno, so we'll dyno it in both modes. They'll give you very, very similar figures. So now that we're in 5th gear, so we're roughly 3000 RPM on the engine, which gives you 2200 on the dyno, so obviously they're out of sync. So if we select here, 3000 RPM here, and then 3000 RPM there. So into neutral, we'll let the car coast down. A few lot of things which we're monitoring at the moment. So we've got your normal temperatures, got your throttle position, charge pressure, which is obviously your boost, your rail pressure, fuel pressure. We'll do your absolute load, ignition timing. We do a few runs. We do around about 4 or 5 runs in stock form, and then we monitor different things on each run. So while this is waiting to coast down, we'll take you through a run. So basically, we're just going to take the car up into 5th gear again. now that the dyno and the engine speed will be in sync. So we're in 5th gear now, and it's just a case of keeping the throttle down all the way until they want to change gear. So there's the run. You put it into neutral, and then when it's in neutral, the car will measure the transmission losses, which you can see here on the coast down. So we'll have a wheel power, a transmission losses, which will give us a engine power. So you can see here we're at around about 310 horsepower at the wheels. So we finished data logging the M2 in the stock form on the dyno. We monitor quite a lot of things, quite a lot of parameters on the M2, such as your IETs, which is your intake air temperature, engine load, your boost requested and actual, your lambda, your fuel pressure, monitor your engine torque as well, ignition timing, as well as your ignition retardation. EGT, throttle position, MAF, there's quite a lot of stuff which we monitor, but we've just put together a few graphs for you, just on the main things. So on screen now we have your stock charge pressure, which is your boost. So as you can see, we've got for a stock M2 around about just under 14 psi, and then peaking up to just over 14 psi in the mid-range, but comes on boost at around about 13.8 psi. Holds it and then gradually tapers off, so it stops the overboost, which if we have a look in a sec, this will correlate to our ignition timing. And then in the mid-range it carries on climbing up again and then slowly plateaus off up top. Fairly normal for a standard M2. And then we've got your stock ignition timing. Not the smoothest of graphs, but this is just the way how ignition is laid out in terms of degrees. So you've got engine speed at the bottom, ignition timing on the left hand side in terms of degrees, but if you look here, around about 5,500 RPM, we've got around about 9 degrees, and then climbing linearly up to 11 degrees up top. And if you see here, as the boost comes on strong, around about 3,800, the ignition time will just back off a little bit to stop it from over boosting, which if you have a look here, it correlates to this part of the graph as well. But yeah, fairly normal graph, as long as it's nice and climbing as the engine speed rises. So with the ignition rising with the engine speed, just helps the car carry on making power up top. And then we've got your lambda, so your fueling. So start off on stoichiometric, which is 1, and then gradually gets richer up until around about 0.8 to 0.79 lambda. Just at the top of RPM range. So basically with lambda, it's in order to keep your EGTs in a happy place, because as EGTs rise in terms of getting hotter, so EGTs, your exhaust gas temperatures, as they get hotter, you want to increase the lambda mixture, which
when you increase the lambda mixture, it reduces the combustion temperatures. If you've got high EGTs, it's likely that your lambda mixture is a little bit lean. So if that's the case, just switching up the mixture, your EGT should come down. But these are fairly normal stuff for a standard M2. Everything is happy. So basically what we will do now is flash our base ECU tune for the M2 with the current modifications on the car, and then repeat the same procedure, logging everything on a dyno, making sure that the engine data is what we've actually calibrated in the ECU calibration. See what sort of figures it puts out in terms of bhp and power, and then slowly tweak it from there. But let's crack on with the tune dyno runs.
So results are in, and the M2 did some fantastic figures. Really happy with what it's put out. There's quite a bit of information on the graph, so we'll talk you through it. But basically, in stock form, the car did 350 horsepower and 552 newton meters. It's a little bit down on what the manufacturer specified for this engine, but it's perfectly normal for our dyno, because most M2s on our dyno tend to produce around about 350 to 355 horsepower. We got 552 newton meters and a peak wheel power in stock form of 306 horsepower. And then with our PE Stage 1 Plus tune, we've got just shy of 420 horsepower, 617 newton meters, and 381 horsepower at the wheel. So around just shy of 70 horsepower and around 130 newton meters and 75 horsepower at the wheels. So very impressive, big increase over a standard car. And if you have a look here, right here we've got your stock power and then your tuned power. Again, both really nice and smooth, and a nice increase throughout the whole of the rev range. And then we've got your stock torque here and then tuned torque. Again, nice increase throughout the whole of the rev range and nice and smooth. And then this is your wheel power, and then we got your trans losses here and just over 50 horsepower peak trans losses. So that's near enough the end of the tuning of the M2. Really happy with how it's turned out. We end up having to flash around about 3 or 4 files for this particular car. First file that goes on it is a base file, and it was running around about 405 horsepower with a base file. We checked the logs, make sure that everything was okay, and then we slowly increased the time a little bit. Made it nice and smooth in the mid-range with the boost control. And then the last run we ended up with what we've just showed you, just shy of 420 horsepower. So really happy with that. 2 more things left to do. Take the car on the road, give it a quick test drive to make sure that the response and drivability of the car is spot on. Come back and then do a full diagnostic check on it and make sure that there's no new faults going to the customer. Customer's a good friend of ours, but we'll do a full diagnostic check to make sure that there's no faults on the ECU, and then that will be it. Hope you've enjoyed this video, showing you how to set up the car on the dyno, showing you a few little things and what we monitor in terms of the parameters. We haven't gone into too much great detail in the on the tuning aspect of it, because obviously we custom tune this stuff, and a lot of it is our own personal information in terms of tuning. But yeah, hopefully it gives you an insight of what we do, and gives you an insight of what you could get if you had an M2. Again, this information will all be available on our website, and if it's something which you are really keen on doing and getting booked in, just get in touch, or put it in the comments box. One last thing, the performance times, we're going to have to overlay that at the end of the video, because I don't think we're going to get enough time to do the actual figures today, because it's a little bit late in the day, but we'll do our best to get those figures later and just put them at the end. But for now, hope you enjoyed the video on the part 1 and the part 2, and next video's already in the making, so we'll see you soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.